Hi, it's Dwyer, keepingitfree.blogspot.com, richarddwyer.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. You know, there's an ongoing phenomenon in society. You notice it in domestic violence cases where the accused always tries to blame the victim, right? This wouldn't have happened but for the victim causing it to happen, right? You see it on some of these talk shows where philanderers say that they wouldn't have philandered if they were taken care of at home, right? You know, the idea is that the spouse they cheated on caused them to cheat. Well, there's a variation of this, right? It's where you blame society's victim. In other words, some perpetrator does a crime, and as soon as they are arrested, they literally pick some dispossessed group in society. Might be blacks, might be Latinos, right? Some group that's down on their luck. And they'll then say, hey, you know what? I didn't do this. The unidentified black assailant did this. They'll even have an elaborate description, height, weight, but the one characteristic that always comes out early is that, of course, the assailant was African American or Latino. Now, this happens way too often in American society. Way too often, right? This isn't opinion. This is historical record. So someone like Susan Smith, right, after killing her kids, literally manufactures a black assailant who doesn't exist, right? Charles Stewart in Boston, after killing his wife, manufactures a black assailant who didn't exist, right? It's not I don't know who did this. It's different. This is literally, you know what? The black guy did it. Then they have a description, right? You have a variation of this. The Scottsboro boys, where, of course, some brothers just happen to be in the vicinity. The accusers had a secret they wanted to keep from people. Why not blame the black guys in the vicinity? Somehow, that makes the story more believable, right? The point in all of these stories, whether it's Susan Smith or Charles Stewart or the alleged Scottsboro Boys victims, who we now know were lying through their teeth, right? One of them, of course, came clean. We all know that the accusers in each of these cases had something to hide, right? The reason you blame the village black man for a crime that that person had nothing to do with, in fact, sometimes the village black man is fictional, is because that's how psychopaths think. They have something to hide. They did something wrong. So now they have to push the blame off on some group that gets blamed unfairly. Some group that's dispossessed. Right? You know, literally, it's blame the victim. You know, people figure out, okay, you know what? These people have been victimized by society. I'll just blame them. Now we come to the Amanda Knox case. Let me just say this. I've been watching this case. I believe the most troubling part of this case, why I believe, from where I sit, this is just opinion, that Amanda Knox is guilty as sin is that when she first got arrested, right? When she first got arrested and accused of murder, what did she do? Now, before I go further, just ask yourself, if the cops came and arrested you and accused you of murder, and you're innocent, wouldn't you literally, tell the cops, I had nothing to do with this murder, and wouldn't you try your best to provide the cops with whatever information they can use to confirm that you didn't do the murder, right? If you were some other place, wouldn't you tell the cops, you know what, I was some other place and I was with these 5 people, right? Wouldn't you provide the cops, if they tell you there's DNA evidence or they want a DNA sample, wouldn't you provide the cops with your DNA? Because your DNA couldn't possibly match the DNA of some killer for some crime you weren't even involved in, right? Wouldn't you try to, cooperate with the cops? Maybe the cautious among us, well, there goes the cops now. Well, anyway, maybe the cautious among us might say, you know what, let me get legal counsel, let me hire an attorney, and then through their attorneys, wouldn't they then provide whatever exculpatory information they have? But what I believe innocent people don't do is to suddenly come up with an elaborate series of lies where they literally claim to have witnessed an innocent person commit the crime or do things that evidence guilt. In other words, if the cops knock on my door right now and accuse me of some crime that happened while I'm making this video, right, that I don't even know about, I might tell them, you know what, I've been online. Check my online internet provider, right? I might tell them, you know what, I'm going to hire counsel because we're talking about murder and I don't want to say anything that can be misquoted. I want a representative who's going to be careful in their choice of words, right? But what I'm not going to do is to suddenly claim to the police that I saw someone enter the room of the murder victim and then identify the person, right, knowing that I didn't see any of it happen. I'm not going to give the cops a false story implicating some other individual. But yet that's what Amanda Knox did. She literally came up with a story where she tried to finger the village black man, a local black owner, Patrick Lumumba, right? He's a business owner, owns a bar in town, had literally nothing to do with Meredith Kirchner's murder. Nothing, right? This guy just happened to be a black man in town who Amanda Knox apparently ran into. So, of course, the cops question Amanda Knox, and Knox comes up with some tall tale, some Stuart Smith type tale that involves her personally seeing Patrick Lumumba walking into the room of the murder victim, right? She literally tries to, let's call it what it is, frame an innocent man for the murder. Right? Who does that? Who finds out about a murder they had nothing to do with and then immediately tries to frame an innocent person for it? I'll tell you who. Someone who's guilty. Someone who has something to hide. I think it's also interesting that of all the people Amanda Knox knew, she decides to frame the village black man for the crime. So let me tell you what I see when I see Amanda Knox. I see a lot of packaging, right? This is a class game, right? This is where, an accused wants you to believe that she's with the in crowd, that she is just too middle or upper class to have done some crime like this. You see Amanda Knox. She's always cultivating some kind of image of being an innocent co-ed, a young person who was just in Italy for college. And how could anyone think that someone so sweet, living in the right part of town with the right kind of parents, the right kind of pedigree, could do a crime so despicable? The kind of crime that only a black man like Patrick Lumumba would do, right? Of course, Lumumba, airtight alibi, he knows nothing about the crime, had absolutely no involvement in the crime. The prosecutors have figured that out. So when I see any accused falsely trying to frame others, especially when, and I say this as a black man, especially when they're just randomly trying to pick the people of color that they know to accuse them, right? To me, that's a strong indication of guilt. I'm really surprised. I have to be honest here. I'm very surprised that the media is giving Amanda Knox the benefit of the doubt to the degree that it is. Because I can tell you, as a black male, once I hear that she's just trying to randomly frame a black man, that's one of the first things she does. No evidence whatsoever. Keep in mind, too, that as this has developed, Amanda Knox has had to admit that the story was completely fictional. This isn't a situation where she saw someone enter the room and she had a good faith belief it was Patrick Lumumba. No. This is a situation where she's had to admit, you know what? I did make up that story. Why is she making up stories? She knew the murder victim. Just on a human level, wouldn't you hear about the death of a friend and then say, oh my goodness, I want the cops being focused so they can find who really did this? Why would you try to distract or divert the cops in some erroneous direction? And so something's wrong with Amanda Knox. This story looks a bit fascist to me. It looks to me like she knows how to throw image to try to convince people that she's with the right crowd, the in crowd, right? And that someone from a different group, person of color, did this terrible crime, right? To me, this is just another Susan Smith, Charles Stewart story. I see no difference. To me, when someone immediately tries to falsely frame an innocent individual for a crime and has some elaborate story where they saw this innocent individual do the crime, to me, that's practically a confession, right? So I have no sympathy for Amanda Knox, none whatsoever. I have the same amount of sympathy for Amanda Knox that she had for the black man she falsely accused of this crime. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at keepingitfree.blogspot.com. I'd like to hear from you. The real action in these online videos really comes in the comment section to the video. I hope you leave your comments. Thanks for watching.